Hello fans and welcome to another special edition of Reflections. I'm sitting here with what he calls himself one of the most controversial people in professional wrestling. I call him a legend inside the ring. Welcome to Reflections, Billy Jack Haynes. Thank you for being here, sir.
Yes, sir.
So it has been 10 years since you sat down in that chair with RF Video, with Reflections wasn't even around at that time. Let's catch the fans up. Let everybody know what's been going on in the life of Billy Jack Haynes over the past decade. Kind of a brushstroke.
Well, I think the last time I was here was was talking about the. Actually, I told you guys to back off because I didn't want you guys to get sued.
Right.
And I said, just give me the mic and let me go. And because you guys are great, you're great guys, and I didn't want to see you guys lose anything over me. So I took the mic. It was a hot mic for probably an hour and a half, and I went at Vince pretty hard, and I'm the only guy since 1992 that has done this. So, hey.
Since that interview, when that interview hit, did you get any, what was the reaction from the wrestling community? Did you get any? Was there negative reactions, positive?
To be honest with you, I was still so drugged out on painkillers, taking between 20 and 30 a day, and on that day I was wired myself still. And I honestly, I don't know. I was so gone, whether I got good feedback, bad feedback. I just stayed away from wrestling for a long time.
Now, are you clean now?
Yes, I've been clean for about 90 days. Actually, I was clean for a year and a half until I fractured my left ankle.
Right.
And then they gave me hydrocodone, which could have, sparked the wanting to get back on the drug again, and it almost did. And then my son overdosed and died. He's wasn't my blood son, but he took some methadone, and he was terminal, and he killed himself at 46. So that's really why I'm doing this interview with you guys now. I want to get a lot out on the table because I do have a straight mind for the first time in 27 years.
Speaking of when you say you have a straight mind, are there any regrets? Everything you said in the interview is pretty much what you believe and the truth, but maybe the way you delivered it or the way you come across or the way you're looked at or viewed. Do you have any regrets from that when people will give you a crazy label or out of his mind or whatever? Are there regrets for the way you handled yourself in front of the camera?
Yes. Yes, there is. I shouldn't have used the F word with Nancy. I watched the interview that I did, and there was a lot of things I said I shouldn't have said. And to her and her family, I apologize. Looking at the camera, and I apologize for using that foul language. That doesn't deter from the fact that I wasn't telling the truth in my heart.
Right.
But I was wrong about a lot of things I said, cussing-wise.
Right. Interesting. So we had been having some conversations about some stories that are pretty prevalent in your past and things that have happened and about Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Macho Man Randy Savage. A lot of these names come up through the past. Now, you and Hulk Hogan, you started out when you guys were together as friends, correct? You had a really good relationship?
Well, I don't know about a really good relationship, but it was a relationship where, hi, bye, that type of deal.
Right, but it was respectful.
He respected me, I respected him, yes.
Okay. And then how did that relationship evolve when you were in the WWF at the height of Hulkamania?
Right.
And was he different? Had he changed? Had fame tainted his brain?
Well, no, you see, this is where we got to really start and go back. I was starting way back in the mid to late 70s, a cocaine dealer, and I kept that secret from everybody.
You were a cocaine dealer?
Myself.
Right.
And I was not just a little leaguer. I was about a kilo a day cocaine dealer.
Right.
And when I was in Portland, I was a cocaine dealer.
Now, was this while you were in the business, or this?
While I was in the business.
Okay.
And I lit a lot of guys up, and a lot of guys got addicted to the cocaine that I sold them, and it got to a point to where I couldn't turn the boys down, and guys like Playboy Buddy Rose, Kurt Hennig, there's guys that are deceased, and I take a lot of heat for that. I take a lot of blame in my own heart for that.
Right.
If you look at Kurt Hennig, died of cocaine intoxication. First time he ever did cocaine was with what I sold him. Buddy Rose, that I sold him. Go on and on. There's a list a mile long. There's Junkyard Dog that's deceased. Adrian Adonis, that's deceased. So yeah, I have to live with that.
Right.
Okay, and on the same token, I'm throwing myself under the bus. Vince has to live with the fact that he didn't give us any time off, and people will say this, that, you know, Hulk Hogan, me, everybody had to wrestle 7 days a week. We flew 5 days a week. So unlike a territory where you're home every night with your family, you're on the road constantly in a plane. So when you get a day where you get hurt, you can't get a day off. And if you do, you're fired because we're independent contractors. That's what this lawsuit is all about. I want to know, and look in the camera to Vince and say, hey, how are we independent contractors if you buy the airline ticket for us to go to the show, if you tell us who the finish is, now we go to the city, the town that we're supposed to go to that you book for us, and then you come and say in the lawsuit that the reason is that you're independent contractor because you buy your own hotel. I look in the camera and say, listen, Vince, you are one ignorant asshole. You fly us from New York to Los Angeles, and you expect us to sleep in the street? Of course we got to get a hotel.
Right.
That's part of the gig. But you're the one, that's unindependent. We're dependent totally on you for everything. And so that was part of the bitch that we had, and there was 61 wrestlers that had that. And we lost that lawsuit September of 2018. And now we're now into appeal. And I can't go into the appellate process, but we're looking really good. Actually, better than we thought. We had the same attorneys that the NFL had, and they won $1 billion for the NFL.
Right.
I just went to union like Jesse Ventura, so the wrestlers can have a future. So now Vince is trying to make things a little better for everybody. So actually, in a way, it's kind of good what he's doing.
Did you ever bring up union talk when you were in the locker room or when you were around the boys?
Well, when Jesse brought it up, I was for it, and I think Hulk Hogan was the only one that wasn't for it because he was making 10% of the gate.
I heard the story he stooged it off to McMahon.
That's correct, and that's what turned me against him right there, was WrestleMania 3. I had nothing against Hulk until that time.
Right. Oh, so that's when sort of the relationship sort of took a turn.
Damn right.
Going back to when you were talking about you dealing to the boys, were you doing that before wrestling, or is that something that you started during your career?
I did it before wrestling. I did it back in the late 70s, mid 70s. In fact, the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
Andy Gibb had a gig in San Francisco, and one of my first big deliveries was there to the concert. I believe it was in the Oakland, Alameda, California Coliseum in July 31st, 1978.
Okay.
And I delivered 1 kilo to him and his entourage, and away Andy Gibb went. Later on, he died in 1988 of cocaine intoxications, very similar to Kurt Hennig. And that right there should have opened my eyes, and it really did, because I knew something bad was going to happen between my dealings and between Vince's dealings. He was giving his doctors, Vince was, without prescription, which you got to have a prescription to get painkillers. He had Dr. Zahorian and about 4 other doctors. We could go and we could get, listen, we could have it sent to a hotel in advance and know that drug is going to be there. So we became 90% of us became drug addicts, me included, for the painkiller, so we could wrestle every night and travel and take Xanax and sleep on a plane and so forth. So we were, after a while, I think what Vince did is he put us under his thumb. So that's why I called him last time in a nasty way, but I'll say it nice this time. Okay. He's a pimp.
Right.
And we were his flying prostitutes, because literally the professional wrestlers didn't care about the $10,000, $14,000 you're making a week. You'd think with that kind of money we'd have some kind of security. But there's zero security in pro wrestling. There's no retirement, there's no employment, there's nothing. You miss the day, you're done. The guy would take your spot. So Davey Boy Smith became addicted not just to cocaine, he became addicted to morphine. A lot of guys did that, and it took Davey Boy Smith's life in 2002. He wants to talk about this wellness program he's got. No, it's a joke. I mean, Vince is a joke about that. I mean, wellness of what? He continued to do it with Dr. Aston all the way up to 2007 after the Zahorian trial.
Right.
Aston, all the boys were buying it from Aston, including Vince. So he's so full of shit, it's coming out his ears.
Back in the early days, was there anybody ever who would see what you were doing and be opposed to it? Were the promoters aware of the dealings and things along those lines? Did anybody ever like say, "Hey, Billy Jack's doing this," or was it pretty much like a boys' club and everybody was involved?
Now you're talking about
the early days when you first broke into the business.
What I did was so secretive, nobody knew what I was doing.
Only the people who were involved in the transactions?
That's correct.
Okay.
The only guy that knew that was involved in everything is deceased, and was Eddie Graham.
Okay.
When I went to Florida, and then there was another guy who was probably my biological father. There's actually 3 people that could be my biological father, even though I said my blind dad raised me.
Right.
And I would have killed for my blind dad because he did raise me. Mm-hmm. And I loved him with all my heart, number one. So I'm not trying to say he's not my dad. I'm just trying to find my biological father. And the other is Lenny Montana, who's 6'7". He wrestled with Eddie, a zebra kid. And I believe right there that's my biological father, and I can explain that as we go on.
Sure. Did you ever fear for your job? Like if maybe perhaps your drug dealing came to the forefront, that perhaps you'd lose your job or you'd get arrested? Like, what was the culture like back then when you were really involved in that world? I mean, you're in the ring, you're in front of fans, and you're doing that on the side. Did that ever give you sleepless nights?
Yeah, a lot of times it did. I knew what I was doing was 100% wrong.
Right.
I was making $4,000 a day on my delivery.
Right.
Kilos went.
Was that weekly?
No, that was daily.
Oh, daily.
I'll give you an example. When I first came to Florida, we don't got time to get into this, and I probably shouldn't even, but there was a Super Bowl in Tampa, Florida, in 1984. It was January 22nd, and I knew a lot of guys that were on the Raiders, Lyle Alzado, and then John Matusak, who went to the University of Tampa. I knew several football players and a couple of wrestlers that were involved in probably the biggest. Pete Rozelle was a commissioner, so it was probably the biggest drug steroid scandal deals ever in the NFL, ever. And I was involved with that. I helped put it together, and I made around $250,000 in myself, cash. Wow.
Just through the dealings of...
Yeah, a lot of guys made money, and the NFL is dirty too. I mean, they do drugs, they do every kind of... Look what they go through.
Right.
But they have a union, see? They got. You see, Brett Favre breaks his shoulder, you're not going to see the coach say the next day, hey, you're going to go out there and play football. No, he's going to take 6 weeks off with pay.
Right.
You break your shoulder in pro wrestling, and Vince will say, get your ass out there, take a shot of morphine, and you're going to go out there and play and wrestle, or whatever you want to call it. We're working our ass off for the fans, and if you don't, you're fired. And if people don't understand the differences, I look into the camera, then there's something wrong with you.
Right. But the culture was different back then, wasn't it? As far as like the way drugs were perceived, obviously illegal, obviously people knew that it was bad for them, but just the way that people looked at steroids, and well, steroids weren't illegal back then, but cocaine and that whole culture, it was more accepted? Was it more accepted?
Well, that's not the point. That's not the point I'm trying to make with you. I understand what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, it is illegal. What I did was illegal, but what Vince did was illegal too.
Right.
You got to have a prescription. When you start shooting morphine every day, you're going to become what? Addicted to it.
Right.
And I'd say probably a quarter of the wrestlers got addicted to morphine, and the others was painkillers like myself. And if you didn't have it, it was a very dysfunctional. Guys on the plane would oversleep. Guys would miss their gigs and so forth, and be almost fired at that time. I can remember Big John Studd a few times that overslept. And it become to the point to where I became the guy that made sure the guys got off the plane.
Right.
Because I didn't want to see anybody get fired. I love the boys. I have nothing bad to say about the boys. Really, I don't.
Sure.
I love them dearly.
Yeah.
We become, these guys dying left and right. It just kills me. And then losing now a young man I raised, Yeah, my heart is full of hurt. Bundy, King Kong Bundy, just passed away.
Yeah.
And
did you have any dealings with him?
Yeah, he was like family. I talked to Bundy about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he was fine. He was on the lawsuit against Vince McMahon, and he refused to go into the Hall of Fame. And I respect that dearly, because in WrestleMania 2, Bundy wrestled Hulk Hogan in the main event. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't think King Kong Bundy should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago? Just think about it. This is WrestleMania 2. We're in WrestleMania 30.
They have Coco Beware's in there, but not King Kong Bundy.
Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger's in there.
Yeah.
He never had a match that I knew of.
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, so it's kind of a joke in a way, but Bundy, I don't know what Bundy did to Vince, so he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Right. Well, isn't that pretty much the problem with the business, is it's pretty much politics?
I think that's pretty much the problem in the entire world, is politics.
Right.
Either left or right. Both of them lie, both of them cheat, both of them take taxpayer money. I worked on both sides of the fence in the political spectrum.
Right.
I've dealt drugs at the highest level you can. That's with Barry Seal. Barry Seal was involved in the Mena, Arkansas. And I could have been there as a first-tier level guy. I decided I didn't want to go that high. And so I stood basically to the kilo a day. $4,000 a day was good to me.
Right.
Making $30,000 a week. Instead of putting my money overseas account, I traded it in on silver dollars. And I had 4.5 or 3.5 5-gallon drums full of silver dollars.
Speaking of politics, you recently brought up something about the Clintons.
Well, I just got your mention in Mena, Arkansas.
Right. Can you elaborate on that?
I can to a certain point.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm not afraid of anything.
Right.
What's going to happen is going to happen. I have never been afraid to say anything. But the Clintons are involved in it in Mena, Arkansas. They had the Iran-Contra that they were taking, and it was they would trade arms, $400 for an M16 and 1,000 rounds for 1 kilo of cocaine in return. At that time, they were helping the Iran-Contra against the Nicaraguan rebels.
Right.
At that time, Barry Seal was flying these C-123 cargo planes into, I believe it was Panama. Don't quote me on that. I think it was Panama, and that's where they would unload the weaponry for the Iran-Contra, and in return would get back the cocaine. And 1 kilo, who would get better than the deal? $400 for a gun, an M16, or for $40,000 a kilo. We got the better of the deal. But I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, it's all clear 30 years later.
So why do you think you get, like, you talking about stuff like this that people know about, a deep state and all kinds of things like that? Why do you think that people want to label you crazy for talking about stuff like this?
Well, they want to say
it.
Well, just like the fake media, no one was as far left as me. Nobody. I mean, I'm talking about I was a Saul Alinsky nut. You know who Saul Alinsky is? Mm-hmm. Okay. You know who Bill Ayers is?
Sure.
You know who Bernadine Dorn is? You know Weather Underground, all that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I practiced for years. So they come to a point where they trusted me. And I became part of a team. It's kind of like Leah Remini exposing Scientology now. Mm-hmm. It's a brainwashing. And I was brainwashed on the left. Not that the right isn't any dirtier, but after a while, what triggered me was the fact that a friend of mine in 2012 was killed in Benghazi. He was one of the 2 guys that were on the roof. His name was Tyrone Woods, and he worked in Oregon City at my gym. This happened, the last time I talked to you guys, it was in 2009. This happened in 2012. So I didn't have a chance to talk to you guys. And he was killed on the roof. And it was an election year, so President Obama and Hillary Clinton just let him, hey, stand down, don't bring it in, don't help them. Basically, they're left there to die. So when I seen that, I said to myself, to hell with this Obama administration and government. To let our own men die and get shot to death in the embassy over there in Libya, that really turned me around.
Right.
And I started watching and focusing on things, and I said, I'm going to quit these drugs. I'm actually going to quit him.
So that was set the road for you to that whole incident set the road for you to recovery.
Well, prior to that, I had a suicide attempt, but we didn't get to that yet. But the whole point is, that was a turnaround point for me. And then I had 3 or 4 relapses. I quit for a month and would go back, quit for maybe 3 months and go back, until finally I called Vince McMahon up, and I talked to Howard Finkel, who's a good friend of mine, and I heard he's sick.
He is, unfortunately.
And he's one of the greater guys I've ever met in pro wrestling, actually. And I'm really sorry to hear about Howard Finkel, but he basically told me that I said I'm going to sue Vince, and he said Vince said you couldn't rub 2 quarters together. I said okay. I told you tell Vince to stick it up his ass, and I'm going to sue him. And that's exactly what I did. I sued him for $5 million. And then during that point, he said that I couldn't get one guy that would back what I say. Not one.
Vince said that?
Vince said that to me. Or in the background, I heard him say it in Howard Finkel's office.
Oh, so he was actually in the room.
Yeah, but he was blurting. I could hear what he said. I think he was on speakerphone.
Okay.
So what I said is Vince, you're wrong. I'm going to get 50-60 on a class action lawsuit. And I heard him laugh again. And you don't do that to me. My whole life, I've done things that people said couldn't been done. Like sparring with Ron Lyle and Jerry Quarry and Ken Norton and holding my own pretty much. Well, I got my ass kicked, but I could play with these guys.
Sure.
And so I can do anything once I put my mind to it. So when I hung up, I was so pissed off that the first thing I did was get on the internet and find out who this NFL attorney was, who won $1 billion from the NFL for
concussion.
CTE, concussion.
Right.
Because I know that I'm not right. I've had so many concussions. I'm not saying they're all on Vince's watch, because I've had concussions many times. But Vince doesn't give you the time off, so I figured, what the hell, I'm going to try. So his name is Bill Kairos. I got a hold of him. We talked for 4 days. Next thing you know, he sent me the contract. We sued for $5 million. He says, you think anybody else will join the lawsuit? And I says, I do not know, but I'm going to give it my 100% best effort. Because they fear Vince. I don't.
Right.
And by the time it was all said and done, I got 42 guys. I got the lawsuit over here. I showed you guys earlier. And there's now Bundy just passed away. He was on it. There's Paul Orndorff, Butch Reed, Ken Patera, Demolition. These are all big name guys. Wrestlemania guys joined up against Vince. So that had to really tick Vince off.
Sure. Why do you think they fear him? Because of money?
No, because he's a nut. When you're a billionaire, and he made it on the backs of guys like me, Hulk Hogan. He made it on the guys of the backs back in the 80s.
Right.
He had nothing. I had more money than Vince had.
Right.
Vince had to borrow money to start the WWF in 1980. And Vince sold cocaine. He'll deny it, but he sold cocaine just like I did.
Vince sold cocaine?
Damn right, he sold cocaine.
While he was...
Yes, but he had other people do it for him for the profit. He'd do anything to make money so he could start up his dream, and he's a genius. Vince, I'll give you that. You're a genius. You did it. But you did it on the backs of the boys that now are dying left and right. So if he wants to say he's got this quote-unquote wellness plan going, go to the families, like I said before, and dig up the grave. If you think it's all the work and they didn't die, dig up Hercules Hernandez's grave or Kurt Henning's or all these guys that have died, and then see if their body's in there. And then go back to their kids, and you want to put them in the Hall of Fame right after Kerry Von Erich died. This really struck a real nerve because Kerry was a good friend. 93, Kerry was so hooked on drugs, he started writing his own prescriptions. Vince was slowly cutting him out of the play because he squeezed him like a sponge, got everything out of him. And then all of a sudden he fires him. What's he going to do? Now, there's the pimp. He's a drug dealer. He has nowhere else to go. So he writes another prescription, going to go to prison. So he goes out. What's he do? He takes, I think it's a 357, puts it to his heart in Denton, Texas, and blows himself away. I put that on Vince totally because he's the one who illegally wrote the prescriptions himself, gave the drugs, gave the morphine to Kerry and to every other wrestler available.
Vince was writing prescriptions?
No, you misunderstood me. Without prescriptions, or maybe I said it wrong. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, no prescriptions ever. Dr. Zahorian served 8 years in prison now.
Right.
Vince didn't serve a day. Why? Because Hulk Hogan went and he didn't have to testify. They got him out of it. And then I think it was Billy Graham that went in there and really pissed me off. Went in there and took money for a hip replacement, whatever, and lied for Vince.
Right.
Or Vince would have went downriver. Then he says he's got the wellness plan. Then Dr. Ashton comes along, and then 60 more guys die. How many guys got to die, honestly, Vince, before you can really come clean? You know, you're what's he, 72 years old now?
Early 70s.
Okay. I'm 65. All I'm asking, Vince, give the guys a break. Give them a union. They're not independent contractors. Maybe you're doing a little better now, but you can't wait for the old school to die. Why don't you just admit it? Kamala's out there right now on her lawsuit, who's on kidney dialysis. He needed help before he lost his legs. You didn't help him. A lot of guys, for some reason, you just were happy like you got off on it. And I don't know, that part of it really is unforgivable. But in the same token, look how many guys I threw under the bus. Vince and I are both guilty.
Do you think that's where the fear comes in? The fear because, like you say, superstar Billy Graham, he took hip replacement surgery money probably because he was broke. So do you think the power of money that Vince has over people, like they always want to keep him in their good graces because they'll need a new hip or they'll need rehab or something they can't afford?
I don't know. I mean, you have a good, valid point. It could be.
Right. No, I was only going off I was trying to get to the bottom of when you say that wrestlers who would not go on to this lawsuit over fear. I was just trying to get to the bottom of like what that fear would be.
It takes one guy to come forward in life. One guy. People are fearful of a lot of things. Like people are saying, well, they're afraid to say they support Donald Trump. Is a good example. Okay. Well, you know, I told you I was so far left. When in Benghazi, when Tyrone Woods was murdered, that changed me completely, and I went far right. So I am a Trumper. I'm proud to say, Donald Trump, you're doing a great job as president. Keep it up. That's me.
Right.
Okay, and no one can tell me what to say or do yet because we got what's called a Constitution. Now the Constitution seems to be going to be shredded by the left. And if you want to call it the left or the Democrats, I call it the Communist Party. Because that's what's coming. It happened right after World War II. They started it up again. And I was basically informed what was going to happen. They are coming. I'm one of the guys that's like Jesse Ventura. You know, I believe 9/11 was an inside job. There's no question about it. Building 47, fell because there's a fire in the basement? It came down with controlled demolition.
I spoke with Jesse yesterday, and I asked him if he would run for president in 2020, and he said that he would be afraid that if he ran, it would get Donald Trump elected because he would split the vote, because he'd run as a libertarian.
Yeah,
so
he doesn't like Donald Trump?
He does not.
Well, was he like Clinton?
No, he doesn't like Clinton either. He doesn't like either the Republicans or the Democrats.
Well,
he thinks they're both
He
corrupt.
might be right. He might be right, but if you got a choice between the both of them,
right.
This guy's doing a much better job than Clinton ever thought of or was going to do. And what about Linda McMahon? Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to 2010. She ran for the senator. She ran to be senator of Connecticut. And who did they put in there? Richard Blumenthal, who was a 20-year district attorney for Connecticut, to go against Linda McMahon. And if they didn't do that, if Linda McMahon wins, they would win head-to-head, woman against woman, Republican against Democrat. And I can lay you 10-to-1 odds that Linda McMahon would be president of the United States right now. Because, period. That's my opinion. Hands down, and they knew that. Because Linda would have had the entire wrestling community behind them, the cable community behind them, money behind him. Vince spent $100 million trying to get her
I was
elected.
just about to bring. There was the most money ever spent in a non-presidential election that went to a loser who didn't win.
Right.
In the history of the world, in the history of our country.
Correct.
It's
So
remarkable.
if you don't think they were trying to win the presidency, that kind of gave it away right there.
Right.
So usually you're a senator or governor that runs for president of the United States. So she had to win something to run on something, right?
Right.
Well, now she's part of the Trump administration is small business, which I find is a real joke, because she couldn't even take care of the WWF business.
Right.
Smartened everybody up to the Zahorian, giving the drugs to all the wrestlers. So, she's just as crippled as Vince McMahon in my book.
Did you ever have any direct dealings with her back in the day when you were with WWF?
Yeah, I want to say this. Before I opened up my gym, I blew my right knee out, and I'm sitting up in the hospital, and I'd already given notice, so I didn't give a shit. I had probably $6 million at this time.
Okay.
And I didn't give a crap anyway about anything, except the boys that I hurt. That always hurt my conscience. I knew down the road that something was going to happen bad, and it did. Adrian Adonis was the first one to go. He had the coke problem really bad. He died in a car wreck, but he was a cocaine addict because of me, and several other wrestlers. They want to come forward, they can come forward. They don't, they don't. I'm throwing myself under the bus. So hey, what more can happen to me?
Right.
If they don't want to admit it, they don't have to. I'm just not proud of it. Vince he's got to admit to his part, his role in giving guys drugs from Dr. Zahorian and about 6 other doctors until these guys got so hooked and started dying, and all of a sudden he wants to say he has a problem now that Benoit dies. I'm still a believer that Benoit didn't kill his son, because if he killed his son first, he's going to be there 48 hours before he kills himself. So for 48 hours, his son's dead, rotting, starting to smell. I mean, I just do the common sense and follow the money.
Right.
And then...
what do you think happened?
I can't talk about it.
Okay.
At this point. I'm writing right now as we speak. I'm writing a true autobiography on myself with one of the best writers in the world. And it's something in there when people read, you'll see it's a documented, it's all documented,
okay.
So it's true. And it may or may not get me killed. I don't know.
All right. Well, we'll get away from a subject that might get you killed, because we don't want that.
Well, hey, keep talking. Like I said, it doesn't scare me one
right.
bit. You're going to die, aren't you, one day?
For sure.
I'm going to die. I could die today. I could die tomorrow. It doesn't matter to me.
Yep.
I've said before, I flipped the middle finger off. I'm not going to do it this time. But it just doesn't matter to me. The truth matters more to me than anything. I'm the kind of guy that when my blind dad, had lost his wife, was murdered, his only brother was murdered when I was 15, and he became blind with diabetes. I had to make a choice on whether I wanted to raise my son or take care of my dad. I chose at that point to take care of my dad because he took care of me. He was blind, he lost his leg, he was handicapped in a wheelchair. I put him on the toilet, I wiped his ass. I did everything you could to help my dad for 5 straight years. I left my boxing career, everything, until I was 29 years old. Now, why would I do that? Am I looking for credit in front of the camera? I'm not. I just loved this guy so much. But when the death part and the murders and all that stuff, I started having a different hatred angle that I had built up in my heart. That's why I got into cocaine. I became a leg breaker and worse. And I can't get into that, right, obviously.
Right.
But
right.
But I'm no saint, and I'm asking for God's forgiveness now. But I did things that I shouldn't have done, and I'm gonna go ahead and meet the Maker one day, and he'll go ahead and judge me on it.
All right. Well, let's turn it back to wrestling a little bit for now. We'll take a road and we'll take a left and we'll go back to wrestling. You going to the WWF for the first time, there was a contract or a money dispute that led you to the WWF. Is that correct? Something that happened where you were shorted money for a pay-per-view? No?
I don't know who came up with that. I honestly don't know. Maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe I could have said it just to overwrite it. I don't think I did. If I did, I did. but no, it had nothing to do with money. I was going to be there, one of the first guys. I was on the very first program, I think, that Vince had with the new generation, WWF. They had this sled, and they had Hulk Hogan was in the front, they had Wendy Richter, they had me, and they had Barry Windham in the back.
Okay.
And I was going to be a big part of the ride-in with Vince. I think he was afraid I was going to, turn him in for the coke that he was dealing or whatever. Don't know.
That's interesting. So you think that perhaps you ever got a push because of information that you had on him?
Or it could have been because of Nancy Argentino in Allentown. The murder of Nancy Argentino. That could have been it, right, Vince? Of course, he's going to play stupid to that. They just opened the case up in 2015, I seen, with Jimmy Snuka, and then he died, and he's on our lawsuit, and he really did have so many concussions, he did lose his mind there towards the end, so they dropped it. But Hulk Hogan was also having sex with Nancy Argentino, and she got pregnant. She told everybody she was pregnant. So the word I got, was that they had to eliminate her. And they even looked to Richard Kuklinski, who was at that time was still out, and he was a hired killer. And I knew him. I knew Richard Kuklinski through Lenny Montana, and he killed over 200 people, but he wouldn't kill a woman. And they found out that Nancy Argentino was a woman.
Right.
So he wouldn't do it. So
and who was trying to hire him?
Vince McMahon. And so, you think Vince is going to do it on his own, and Vince will deny everything I'm saying right now? It doesn't matter to me because I know the truth.
Right.
And so he ended up talking to Jimmy about it, because this girl here, if she did have Hogan's kid, if it was Hogan's kid, it would completely ruin his entire dream. Remember, there hadn't even been a WrestleMania 1 yet.
Right.
Not even a WrestleMania 1. He was working on it. So his dream would have been gone. He owed I believe, the mob money, the five families, wherever he borrowed it from. Lenny Montana himself was an enforcer who could be very easily my biological father. He could easily have borrowed money from them. I don't know who he borrowed it from. I was even going to loan him money on a high-interest loan.
Right.
So he didn't have no money. The entire thing flopped in Japan in 1976 when his dad went with Inoki and Ali. It flopped because Inoki just laid down and started kicking Ali. That thing brought wrestling crashing to the ground, boxing too. And so he needed money desperately to fulfill his dream, and he'd do it any way he could. Right, Vince? And
where did you get the information that Hogan impregnated the girl? Where did that come? Was that known, or did you just?
Jimmy told me that there were several guys that she was saying she was pregnant, and I told my very last match, or one of my very last matches, with Brad Armstrong and Jimmy Snuka. It's on. I'm the worst wrestler in the history in cage match. I looked it up because the guy told me, because I'm hated so much by Vince. He wants to put me on the bottom, so I have no credibility at all. When really I've got more credibility probably than all the wrestlers combined. Because at least I'll get in front of a camera and tell the truth, even if it may cost me my life. I don't care anymore. I didn't care back in 2009, but I was so wired on drugs. Now that I got a straight head, I can look in the camera and say to Vince that, yeah, Nancy Argentino was murdered. And I think the family should go after Vince and sue the hell out of him.
On his direct command?
On his direct command. Because if the baby does come out and they find out the baby is Hulk Hogan's, basically Hulk's done. Because his original plan was to, I had talked to Bruiser Brody, his original plan was to not, the Iron Sheik had the belt, he won, he was going to put it in a plan with the Bruiser Brody, was going to come in and take the belt from Hulk Hogan.
Okay,
and then
Bruiser
Vince,
told you that.
That's a fact.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I'm telling you that's a fact, I
Okay.
guess. Okay, so Brody he's a Japan guy. He never worked in the States much, Japan and Puerto Rico. So when he didn't do that, Brody was so mad he was going to go over there and beat the shit out of Vince, and I mean, probably ended up breaking his neck. So he ended up paying, Brody said he paid him $50,000 a year, cash, to shut up about it. And it got to where he wanted more, and the next thing you know, right after Andy Gibb dies, I'm at home and I read where Brody gets stabbed to death in Puerto Rico. And who's he get stabbed to death by? The same guy that Vince has put in the Hall of Fame, Carlos Colon, and his quote-unquote buddy. So the conspiracy that's there is the fact that Vince didn't want to pay no more money, and I think Vince had him killed there.
Wow. So Bruiser had too much information on what was going on, and Vince was. You think Vince is implicated in the murder of Bruiser Brody?
If you knew Bruiser Brody, you know, I knew Bruiser Brody real well. If you know Bruiser Brody, you know he's one of the badasses that there's ever been in pro wrestling, if not the baddest. And what he says, he means.
Yes.
And Vince was terrified of this guy, and so was Hulk Hogan terrified of working with this guy. Such a crybaby, he even told Vince, I don't want to work with him, man. You know, he wanted to work with guys he had control of.
Right.
So when Brody got stabbed to death, which was actually the 16th of September, that's a kill date in the Democratic and the DNC party. That's a kill date. So when I seen that date, the 16th, he actually died the 17th, I said to myself, there's something deadly wrong here.
Right.
And I still think to this day I'm right on that, and I've got a clear head.
At the time when this is happening and you see this go down and you think, do you ever fear for your life at that time?
I've never feared for my life.
Right.
You know, they can take me anytime they want to take me. You know.
But you had some pretty explosive information that Vince wouldn't want you to have at that time.
Sure.
And I mean, if he could do that to Brody, he could do that to you.
Sure. I'm wondering why he hasn't. In fact, I think he had in 2006, but I can't prove it. Somebody tried to kill me, and also 2001, 2007. But who's ever doing it isn't professional.
You've had attempts on your life?
Yeah, Kuklinski is already in prison and dead. He died in 2006. He was arrested in 1986. Barry Seal was murdered in 1986. 86 was a year, man. And then when Clinton became president, the very first thing that happens is that the World Trade Center is bombed. There's a bombing underneath. So that put 24-hour security on the World Trade Center. So my opinion is this. In the next 8 years while he was president, he had the mainstream media in his right-hand pocket. Clinton did, Bill Clinton. And they went ahead every day, pulled the demolition in both towers.
Right.
Until it got right. And then in 2000, I don't know if Gore was supposed to become president. They had a little fluke there and where Bush became president. They were all together anyway. And I think they pulled the inside job, let the guys go ahead and fly the planes in, and then the building 47 comes down on its own. These buildings come down, experts say it can never happen the way unless it's controlled demolition, and I fully agree with that. I agree with Ventura's theory on that also. But they want you and me to believe it. And that's called the Bilderberger Group.
Yes.
If anybody don't think the Bilderberger Group exists, just look it up.
Well, they have meetings every year. They move it all around the world. So
that's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. So, hey, if they want to come and kill me, come kill me. The information's still here, and I also got a tape. I got 3 tapes with my attorney in case I am killed. And I think they know what those 3 tapes consist of.
Do you think perhaps because you went public the way you did, you became too high profile? That's what Jesse Ventura always thought about himself. He thought he was too high profile. You kill somebody who's high profile, they become a martyr.
Oh, a martyr like Kennedy?
Yeah.
Because Kennedy didn't want to go to Vietnam.
Right.
Okay, so that was all planned in Dallas, Texas. Operation 40 in the Bay of Pigs.
Sure.
They failed in the operation to kill Castro. So the same Operation 40 takes 1963, gets it all set up for Kennedy to come into Dallas. Here's LBJ. Richard Nixon was there. They got George H.W. Bush on camera there. Barry Steele told me that he flew George H.W. Bush to Tyler, Texas, which is like 80 miles away, and he made a phone call to make it look like he wasn't even there.
Right.
And they got him on camera that he was there. So this isn't going to make the Bush family too happy, but they're involved too.
Right.
So it goes up to the highest levels, and the CIA happened in 1948, right after World War II, and they brought some of the biggest scientists over here from Germany to create what? They wanted a one world order, a new world order, a one world government. And that's why they're crapping all over Trump and the Constitution today. If it wasn't Trump, it would be somebody else. And if Clinton was in there, we wouldn't even have a Constitution. You'd be able to carry a gun. So, yeah, man, I mean, it's all... You know what? Harley Race told me this. He told me the whole world is a work. And, you know, he hit me I said, yeah, you might be right. And wow, what's Harley even saying? And next thing I knew to myself, you know something? Harley Race is right. This whole world is a work. Everywhere you look, you got a radio advertisement trying to sell you something, brainwashing, a TV advertisement, now the internet, a poster. I mean, somebody's always trying to sell you something. And pro wrestling tells a lot of what the world really is all about. It's rock and roll and wrestling and really death. And the death part of it is what I don't understand, is why Vince can sit back there in his high horse while all these wrestlers die. I mean, let alone Nancy Argentino or, you know, Bruiser Brody is a really bad thing to do, bad example, whatever, a good example, bad, I don't know. But we're talking now up until close to 100 wrestlers that have died on his watch. And so he says, no, I got the wellness program on, and now I get to take all these guys, they get drug treatment. I could have had drug treatment, I should have, but you know what? I had too much pride to go and ask for drug treatment from Vince. I couldn't do it. So I sat there and was an addict for 27 years because I didn't want to ask for any help. And I still didn't, I kicked it on my own. A lot of these guys needed help, like Scott Hall is a good example. I mean, the ones that are alive, Lex Luger, they're walking time bombs ready to die.
Right.
You know, that aren't dead, but you may as well be dead.
Yeah.
Their brains are gone.
Zombies.
Pretty much. I think I said that last time.
Yeah. Do you think that in this current state of wrestling, you know, with its wellness policy and all the things that they're doing right now, there's that the pain meds and the drug addiction is still prevalent in today's world? Do you still think that he still does what he did in your day, just under a cloak? Or do you think it actually has cleaned up?
I think it's probably cleaned up a little bit. I think he's had no choice. I think the heat's been on him, especially with this lawsuit. No, he's under a microscope now, and he's trying to play Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, but I think deep down in his subconscious, he still thinks he's Adolf Hitler. And no, he doesn't care about the boys. If he cares, he would take care of the old school. He can't wait for the old school to die off. I told you that before.
Right.
And the old school is dying off. Bundy just dies. I'll be dead soon. Hogan will be dead soon. Superstar Graham. These guys, Bruno just died last year, I think.
Yeah.
So he'll take the martyrs like Bruno, and I think Bruno got $2 million to go in the Hall of Fame because he needed him to go in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And I believe that's what Bruno had told me. It's $2 million or $1.5 million or $3 million. I'm not sure, but Vince paid him to be in the Hall of Fame. And when you got, it should be just pro wrestlers into the WWF or E Hall of Fame. Shouldn't be any actors. You know, it's not entertainment when a guy falls. I'll give you the example. Owen Hart, and this is another conspiracy theory, and it's a good one because in the screw job in Montreal in '97, Brett, they did the submission, you know, with Michaels, and they went ahead. The referees would ring the bell when he didn't submit. Spit in Vince's face. Spit landed right in his eye. Knocked him out in the dressing room. Undisputed, knocked him out.
Right.
Vince even come out bleeding from the nose and the ear. And so 2 years later, he gets an opportunity to get Owen Hart, his brother, 90 feet or 80 feet up in the air, and a safety harness that holds 2 tons breaks, and he falls to his death in Kansas City in Harley Racer's territory. And I said to myself, no way, man. No, I believe that was intentional.
Wow.
And I'll go to my grave believing it was intentional. Anybody who doesn't, I think, is looking the other way.
And again, that you believe that was on Vince's orders?
Yes, that's Vince.
Right.
No one's going to punch him in the mouth. And then Brett's got such an ego. He took the $18 million that they got, the family split it or whatever. Vince paid in his own pocket that $18 million. Didn't let the insurance company pay for it. Now think about that.
Right.
Instead of waiting for let the insurance company pay, he loves money so much he actually reached in his own pocket and paid the Hart family. Right there, it shows me the sign of big-time guilt on Vince's part.
Wow. I've never really considered that. I never really thought about that until just now. But that's really an interesting theory.
Well, if they go to court, he could be convicted of murder.
Right.
They can investigate. Why didn't they investigate it anyway? Money talks and bullshit walks. All you have to do in this world is follow the money. That's it.
Right. All right. Well, I'm gonna change gears here. We're gonna talk a little bit about Hulk Hogan. We'll bring up Hulk Hogan, and the reason I bring up Hulk Hogan is because recently, as a couple weeks ago, and we talked about this, I attended a Q&A ceremony with Hulk Hogan. It was Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and I was there, and a fan happened to come up, and they were doing a Q&A with fans. About 10 fans asked questions, and one of the fans asked, "What about Billy Jack Haynes? Do you have any words to say about Billy Jack Haynes?" And Ric Flair was the first to go. And Ric Flair said that you were a good worker, a good hand. You didn't really cross paths with him too much, but when he did, he was always enjoyable. Do you have the same feelings towards Ric Flair? What are your thoughts and feelings about Ric Flair?
Ric Flair was a good champion. He was not a great champion. I wrestled him in my career probably 20 times, maybe more. They dropped the strap to Kerry Von Erich, and then they were supposed to drop it to me in Portland. They didn't drop it to me, and it's okay.
Why?
It's okay. Because deep down inside, I think Vince, the correlation got back that I was a dealer. And I understand that part of it.
Right.
So it didn't bother me. But everybody thought in the world I was going to win the title, so it did not bother me. You know what I mean? And but there was 14,000 fans in Portland that booed the hell out of the finish. Same thing. Flair does the same match after match after match. He'll go to the bar and drink and forget what he even done. So we had the match the next night. It's the same thing. So to me, compared to Harley Race, in my opinion, Harley Race was 10 times the world champion that Ric Flair was, because he knew how to change up a match.
Right.
Dory Funk, same way. Terry Funk, same way. My opinion. As a good guy. Now, Flair's a good guy. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
That's my opinion.
I understand. There's other people that feel that way. So titles and accolades like that were never important to you in your career?
No, because it's a work.
Right.
The promoter, if you're good enough worker, you don't need a belt. You know, he's a 17 times champ means you lost it 17 times, right?
Well, why do you think some people actually care? Because it is a work, and everybody knows that.
Because it's all ego.
Right.
You know, and I never had an ego in this business. I could care less if I had a belt or not. You know, I was making myself close to $50,000 a month in this business. You know, or pardon me, a week sometimes. 200,000 a month. That's more than Hulk Hogan ever made.
Right.
But I was doing it illegally. Hogan was at least doing it legally.
Right.
You know.
So Hogan was next to take the stage, or next to get the microphone and talk about you, and he immediately launched into a story about first his appearance at your gym, which you've talked about on these interviews before. But he said that you were to appear at his gym. And he said that you were very upset. He said he didn't think he was going to be able to make it, and then he ended up making it. And then he launched into a thing about how you were very upset with him and drove across the country to fight him at an arena. And he had just gotten the news that Jimmy Hart's mother had died in a car crash while he got the news that you were looking for him in the arena. So he said he threw down what he was doing. He got all hot. He stormed around the arena looking for you because he was ready to put up his fists and go at it with you. And then he finally comes face to face with you, and you basically apologize, beg off, say, "Hey, I'm sorry, Hulkster." You shake hands and everything's squashed. Now, that's an interesting story because that doesn't really jive with what you were telling me.
Well, anybody who knows me in pro wrestling, first of all, knows that's not me. You know, I've been in as far as locker room fights, I've been in probably 6, and I've never lost one of them. I'm not proud of that fact, but the point is, anybody wants to go. I don't care who they are. I'll go with anybody and end up probably knocking them out because I've been in the fight game my whole life. But once again, I'm not proud of that fact. The truth of the matter is very simple. I had a gym, and I was so strung out on dope that I wanted to open up my own gym. I was married at the time. I had about $6 to $8 million in silver dollars, value-wise, and I had about $1 million in cash. So I wanted to clean out on my own. So I gave notice to the WWF. Prior to that, there was a thing that happened in Arkansas that involved 2 little kids that were killed on a railroad track.
Okay.
I was sent down there to, there was drops that were being stolen, cocaine drops. I was sent down there to take care of 2 state police officers from Arkansas. But it was an inside job. That will go into later,
Yeah,
I know that, but that will go into later.
Okay.
But that happened in 1987. The gym opened in 1987, 3 weeks after that incident. So I came back home, and I was really stressed out, man. And 2 days before the gym opened, I had over $100,000 in promotion put in that gym that Hulk Hogan was going to be there.
Right.
Over $100,000. And Vince knew it. Vince called me up 2 days prior to the grand opening and says that Hulk Hogan isn't going to come down to my grand opening, which would have killed the gym, obviously, And everybody in the world, Hulk Hogan was a god back then. And so I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, I want you to come back. You got to promise me you're going to come back and not retire like you said, and I'll put you in the main event against Hogan. You'll turn your heel against Hulk Hogan.
So he was trying to work a deal.
He was working me, not working a deal. He was working.
He was working you and holding the Hogan thing over your head as leverage.
That's correct. That's correct. And that's common sense. What do you say? When you think about it, it makes sense. So
right.
It's common sense. And so, yeah, it's the truth. And so I said, Vince, I'm strung out like all your guys are. And I told him the eventual end is going to be the death and destruction of your company. And lo and behold, people started dropping like flies later on down the years. And I didn't want to be the first one to drop. I still don't know how I'm alive. And so I had to give my word, and my word is everything to me. I had to give my word over the phone to Vince. Please let Hulk Hogan come out, and I'll go ahead and go back into the WWF and do what you said. And that was to wrestle Hulk Hogan, and he said he would pay me $1 million in the main event against Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And whether he was going to do that, I think you'll find out in a minute. He's full of shit there too. So I went ahead. Hulk Hogan came out, and I had heard on a radio show that he said that I didn't pay him nothing. That some guy told me, and I didn't care about that or not. I didn't pay him any cash whatsoever to come out.
Right.
Never cost me a dime. So what it did cost me was 1 kilo of cocaine. He wanted cocaine over the cash.
Hogan did.
Hogan did. But he wanted to break bread with Vince McMahon on it. So we'll call it kudos, So break bread on an uncut kilo of cocaine. So half went to Vince McMahon.
Right.
And half went to Hulk Hogan.
Wow.
So there's his money. So he's full of shit to sit there and say I didn't pay him no money. I paid him $40,000 for Medellin cartel uncut coke. That's worth a lot of money. And so that's what he wanted. He was a cocaine addict. Anybody who wants to say he wasn't is full of shit. Billy Graham has said it many times. There's anybody who knew him would see him before any interview. He'd be snorting cocaine. He did it in WrestleMania 3 in a locker room with a lot of guys. I did my thing too. I did my dope. So that's what happened. And so no, I didn't pay him any cash, but it cost me $45,000 or $40,000 for the coke.
Have you ever told that before?
No, not that I know of. I may have, in my highness, when I was high on pills, may have mentioned something, to, I think, Henning, to Kurt Henning.
Right.
And let me tell you something. The guys that I did business with are now deceased. And I think you know pretty much the guys I'm talking about. I'm talking about,
Pretty much all of them.
Yeah, and Vince too. So it's a combination of Vince's drugs and my coke and together that these guys died on.
Right.
So I'm just as much. I need to be thrown under the bus, just like Vince needs to fess up to it. Of all these here drugs, instead of beating these court systems like he beat Zahorian and beat Aston, these guys serve 8-10 years in prison, and Vince laughs all the way to the bank because he's got Jerry McDevitt, his attorney, this little bulldog attorney, bark.
Right.
He is damn good. There's no question about it.
Right.
But he's going against the NFL attorneys that we got right now. We'll see who wins this appeal. It's going to be close.
So that's the Jim story. Now let's go into the you driving across the country to beat him up.
It's another bullshit story. In 1995, Jerry Jarrett had called me up and said that they want me out as a heel. They see me as Black Blood as a heel in 1991 when I worked for Ted Turner. And I left there because there was a murder in Oregon, a high-profile murder named Michael Franke, who was head of the Oregon State Penitentiary, and they were trying to set me up for the murder. And who saved my life was Jimmy Snuka's brother, Coco Samoa. He said the day before that they're setting me up. If I go out there, this girl had been raped, and it was the governor's daughter, and I was going to go out there. I had no idea that it wasn't the governor's daughter. It was the governor himself. Neil Goldsmith had been raping the girl since she was 12 years old or 13.
Wow.
And so they were trying to set me up and kill two birds with one stone, and Coco Samoa smartens me up to that. And so I don't go. So what happens? Nothing happened then, but the 17th, a week later, the guy's killed, and they had these boxers that were set up that were going to testify against me, and all three of those guys were murdered. It cost me $6 million to get out of it.
Wow.
So every penny that I saved, I had about $1 million left, I had to fork over it or they were going to kill my entire family. So I did it. I think anybody would have done it. When if you love your family, you do it.
Right, of course.
So I did that. Now, in 95, I got to the point to where I went through that money and I needed money now. Now I'm lost. So Jared gives me an opportunity to come out there to USWA and give me one last shot and told me he was going to book WCW for Turner. And so I go out there and I'm ready to go. I turn heel. And this is when I was on top of my game. I had given up dope for a little bit, and I went out there, and Lawler was afraid to wrestle me for some reason. His son wrestled me, who just passed away, Brian Christopher. And,
this was the Black Blood.
No, this isn't Black Blood. This is when I was Billy Jack. The Black Blood thing.
This was one last
We haven't got. Look at the Black Blood thing. That'll be covered in an autobiography.
That was WCW, Black Blood.
Right. The Black Blood. That was in '91. Good call. And but that was so I stayed away from the trial,
right.
While they took care of business there in Oregon and eliminated all these witnesses that were killed. One was Marcellus Allen. Mm-hmm. One was Fred McNally, who supposedly drove his motorhome over a bridge right in Warm Springs. That's not even a county that's jurisdicted by the state of Oregon. It was just an absolute joke. And so they spared me. They sent me out to Hood River, Oregon, and I could come into Oregon, to Portland, once a week to wrestle, see my dad. That's all I could do. And finally I got the job with WCW with Turner. I blew my right knee out. That was it for wrestling. I go back home. My dad dies my 40th birthday, and I became extremely violent. At that time, I'm ready to go back into some heavy duty stuff.
Right.
And I was too, my whole life had just crumpled before me, millions of dollars gone, and I hated the state of Oregon, and I wore Oregon on my trunks. I wore Oregon here, there, take that, Oregon, stick it up your ass. And that's why I put that on, by the way, I forgot I did. And Nike as well. The whole thing. He was in Oregon. They killed a woman named Pam Gaston, and if you look up, in case they do come kill me, look up Pam Gaston. She was a woman that they took her kid away, and when they took her kid away, they ended up murdering her in Oregon. They took the kid in 1996. They did a child pornography film with with the kid. She got lost in the system in Oregon. 20,000 children have been lost in Oregon. And pedophiles and all that have taken them away. Make this here song and dance video of her claiming that it was her daddy who did it when you know it was you guys. And next thing you know, in 2002, 2004, she's found murdered. And that's when I come forward, and that's when they tried to murder me. Someone tried to murder me. You know, the guy.
How did they try to do that?
Was beaten to death.
Wow.
You know, and to this day I was beaten so bad I don't know. I don't know who did it. It could have been Vince. It could have been anybody. You know, I can't really. I got to go this way on that.
Right.
You know, and but they didn't get the job done there. So I'm wondering why I'm still even breathing, because now that I'm breathing, not only do I got this here, I've got 3 other tapes that my attorney holds right now in case I do get whacked out. And I come to you guys because I got a lot of respect for you. You know, I got a lot of respect for our video. And
well, we have respect for you too, Billy Jack. I mean, you've basically given your life, you're putting your body on the line for fans like us, and we appreciate that, and we're glad that we can give you this forum to speak your mind.
Well, I appreciate it, and the thing is, you know, with I've known Rob a while, I know you guys now, and I feel more comfortable. Last time I was wrong when I told you, cussing all that, told you guys to back off, let me take the mic. Am I radical? Yeah, of course. Am I truthful? 100%.
Are you dangerous?
Am I dangerous? Damn right I'm dangerous.
Right. Is that what they fear?
I don't know what they fear. I mean, you know, you got to tell me what they fear, you know, because I don't fear anything. You know, it's Robert F. Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King. They're all martyrs.
Right.
You know, they want to make me a martyr or what?
Do you think that that's why they try to paint you as crazy?
Yes. I do, and if I come across crazy, I must be the smartest, craziest guy there ever is. Because I had one of the highest IQs until I got my brains beat in, you know.
Right.
And then the concussions and all that stuff. I can't say for sure it's the concussions. I can't say for sure. I don't know. It's something that's triggered me. But one thing for a 100% fact is that I'm throwing myself under the bus. I'm not trying to come here and tell you or anybody in RF video that I'm innocent.
You're taking responsibility for what you've done.
That's correct. I'm taking responsibility for what I've done, and I've done plenty.
So it bothers you because you're taking responsibility, and others, like as you say, Vince McMahon, doesn't.
He takes zero responsibility. You know, he gets on TV and he'll come across like he's never done nothing to anybody, but the people that have died, the wrestlers that have died in pro wrestling, men and women, even Luna Vachon, there's all, Elizabeth. How could you, listen, Miss Elizabeth never did a drug in her life. And look how she died. She had like 7 different drugs in her urine and her blood. So that's what the business will do to you. You're on the road so much and you're in so much mental or physical pain that you'll turn to the drugs, and then you become an addict, like me, Luger, Scott Hall, and then the guys that have died. I mean, Hennings, who I love so much, and I'm not trying to hurt at all, but this is a fact. You know, he died of cocaine intoxication.
Right.
You know, and that's due to me. Vince, the other guys died of overdoses of pills, hydrocodone, oxycodone. That's what you had your doctors, without a prescription, give them. So they became addicts on your watch. Take responsibility. That's all I'm saying. Don't have the Dr. Zahorian serve 8 years and Dr. Aston serve 10 years, and you get your little hand slapped, then you go to a wellness program, say, oh, you go get drug treatment now. Well, drug treatment? What do you mean drug treatment? How about give us a union, give us a base, give us a vacation. Do what the NFL does. You know, when someone's hurt, they get paid when they get hurt in the ring or get hurt on the field. He doesn't do none of that. He wants to call us independent when we're not. I prove we're not independent. Because we buy a hotel room? We're independent? Or sleep on the street. That's it. How stupid is that?
Right.
So
if you took the wrestling business out of Billy Jack Haynes' life, what do you think you'd be doing right now? Like, suppose you were never went into the wrestling business.
I'd be in prison.
You think so?
I'd be dead or in prison. Yeah, I was. We'll get to. I didn't know if I was going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up, and it's because of Roddy Piper. And I want you guys to go ahead and I don't know how long you can take a break or
no, we
film
can
or whatever.
keep going.
I don't need to go to the bathroom yet or anything.
No, we're doing fine. We're right on schedule.
I know I might be pissing Vince off. He may have to go if he's watching this. but in all reality, the truth is he was forced to. He didn't want to give drug tests to everybody that needs it. I mean, Scott Hall's been how many times? 10, 12, 15 times? And that costs thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? To keep continually going. You know, I haven't went once even though I've needed to go. A lot of guys have went more than once.
You've never been in rehab ever?
Never in my life. You know, I ended up rehabbing myself. If you want to call it rehab. 3 months rehab? I don't know.
But you've never seen a professional about any kind of addiction or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
No, me personally, I got too much pride, and.
Do you think that's a sign of weakness, or I mean that could just be somebody trying to help?
Call it whatever you want.
Interesting.
You can call it weakness. You can call it strength. You can call it anything you want. I call it stupidity. You know, I should have taken advantage of it, and but I didn't do it because I think that's too much pride.
Right.
You started mentioning Roddy Piper and you got sidetracked. You said you were going to talk about Roddy.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about Roddy. The reason I want to talk about Roddy is because I noticed that he was in this show called
Legends House.
Legends House. And Roddy told me to watch it, man. He goes, you're going to laugh your ass off because he was on it. And this is before Roddy died. And in the show, it had Pat Patterson on there saying, guys, I want to tell you, I feel so bad. God, I'm going to come out of the closet, I'm gay. I mean, I seen that, I vomited, because the guy has been gay. I have nothing against gay people at all, as long as they leave me alone, right?
Right.
I told people before, when I was 4 years old, I was brutally raped.
Yeah. I didn't want to bring that up.
Well, I'll bring it up then, because I'm the one that was raped. I was 4 years old. A guy used to masturbate on my rectum and lick it off.
Yikes.
Okay? I mean, I don't know what more a kid can go through than that.
How old were you?
4 years old. I went all the way through till I was 8. My mother loved politicians, and I just don't know what the deal is. I still love my mother to this day, even though she was murdered when I was 15. My uncle was murdered when I was 15. He was involved as a gangster. That's why I got involved in the gang activity. My dad was a hard worker his whole life, and that's why I loved him so much. I had good and evil like this. I couldn't balance my life. When Roddy told me about Pat Patterson, it made me sick, because Roddy told me personally, he's passed away now, that he was raped by Pat Patterson. And he was raped he was date raped. I said, Roddy, so was I.
Wow. Wait, Pat Patterson raped you?
That was date raped. I was date raped. Let's go back now. I'm going to let's go to a break so I can go to the restroom, and then we'll go ahead and just cut it off right now, and we'll take it when I come back.
We're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back with more Reflections. Welcome back to Reflections, and we started to get into some pretty heavy accusations and some dark stories. But before we get into that, and I promise you we will get back into that, we're going to wrap up the Hulk Hogan story, the things that I heard at the Hard Rock Casino in Atlantic City, and the things that he said on stage. And we bring that all back to the confrontation where you drove across the country, and Hogan claims that he confronted you, you backed off, and you have a different version of that story. So why don't you just tell us what happened on that day?
In a nutshell, Jerry Jarrett wanted me very bad. He liked my work. He loved my work. So he wanted me to come to USWA until he became head booker of for Ted Turner. So that was great, because Hogan was still with the WWF at that time. And so when I went out there, I polished up my skills with USWA, and like I told you, quote unquote, it's a work. They put the USWA belt on me, big deal. It's just a work, and so I was the champion for the USWA. So I got to wrestle all these guys in the WWF that came over, WWF, and that's what it still was at that time. It wasn't WWE. I never worked for the WWE. So Jerry Jarrett comes in and says, yeah, it's going to happen in probably a month. And I'm really getting excited now because he says he's going to sign me up to a four-year, $2 million contract. I think that's what Jerry said, Jerry Jarrett. And so I'm really happy, because that's now I can go out and get off everything, just be straight. And all of a sudden, he calls me into the office again. And this was after the big Knoxville show, World of Wrestling. I wrestled Brad Armstrong, I had the greatest match, in my opinion, I've ever had against Brad Armstrong. I don't know if you guys ever seen it. It was in Knoxville, Tennessee, August 4th. Jim Cornette's, what's that called up there? Smoky Mountain Wrestling versus USWA. So I dropped right in the middle, 1, 2, 3 to Brad Armstrong with a neck breaker. And the Armstrong family, who I feel was the best, greatest family in pro wrestling, right up there is the greatest. There's a lot of them. I got a lot of respect for them. And Brad died, I know, got him devastated over that. And so when I did the job, Jerry Jarrett came to the next TV, he's going to redo the job for me in Memphis, came up to me and said, Billy, I'm really sorry to tell you this. They don't want me as booker. They want Hulk Hogan as a booker. I said, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, Hulk Hogan. So now I know Hulk's going to be the booker. He's not going to use me after what happened in the past. And so I said, F this, man. I'm driving down. So I take and drive down from Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, to where they were in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Right.
And I went to confront him. I was not at the show. I wasn't working at that time. This is a WCW show. And so after I had done my last thing and gave my notice, it was September, whatever. I'm not sure, St. Petersburg, whatever date it was. You guys can look it up. They can look it up in the computers. And whatever that day was, I drove down there with the sole intention of beating Hulk to death. That was my intent. I mean, I was going to call him out, and either I know he's a punk anyway. He's not a fighter. He's a punk. And there's a lot of tough fighters that really can go. He's not one of them. But he was going to ace me out, so I start to go up the stairs. True story. Randy Savage comes out of nowhere and says, hey, Billy, what's going on? And I told him. He goes, well, let's go upstairs, because he didn't like him either. He had a problem with Hulk. I start to go upstairs, and this little punk kid says, hey, you can't go up there. You can't go up there. Who is this punk kid? A guy named Eric Bischoff.
Wow.
In 1995, who's just telling me I can't go upstairs and talk to Hulk Hogan. And Randy said, that's Billy Jack Haynes. So then he said, oh, man, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know who you were. I'm just no one's supposed to go up there. That's Hulk's spot. I said, we'll see about that. So I go up there. Hogan's in his dressing room getting ready. It says Hulk Hogan, the way he always had it. And I went to him. He was sitting down. Not once did he ever stand up. And while he was sitting down, I said, "Hey Hulk, you're gonna book me on the. I'm still gonna get a 4-year, $200 million deal." And he goes, "Brother, I'm booking, but you're not gonna get that. I said, "We'll go. Why don't you go ahead and you stand up, man?" I said, "I'm calling you out right now. You and me out here, and Randy's gonna referee it. So it's just going to be you and me. Don't worry about him interfering." And he wouldn't get up. And what he did was he had this cross here. He says, "Look, man, I've seen the Lord." And he grabbed the cross. And he says, "I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover," or something like that. So I took in, shouldn't have done it, but I did it. I popped his chin. I said, "Get your ass up. I just drove all the way down here. You cost me $2 million because you're a punk-ass chicken shit son of a bitch." And I'm using foul language again. I'm sorry, but I'm just telling you what I said. And he still wouldn't get up. Randy's right there. Did it again. He wouldn't get up. He stood there. He sat there. He just did nothing. So now it's Randy's turn. Randy called him out, and I was going to referee. He wouldn't fight Randy. So all this stuff about Randy apologized and all that, no, that's bullshit. They did not. They couldn't stand each other. And so I left, called him every name in the book. I got in the car, and then as I started to leave, he came out. I says, you know what? I haven't even got gas to get home. I haven't even got gas to get home. And so Hulk reached out in his wallet and hands me $100 bill. And says, I hope this helps you. And I grabbed it. I'd be the first to tell you I took it because I needed it for gas.
Right.
And that may have been wrong or right to do, but I did take it. And so the story that he told was just a bald-faced lie.
Why would he do that?
Well, just safe face, you know.
Right.
He's safe face. Anytime, look at Stone Cold Steve Austin married my ex-wife, and I challenged him 3 years ago because I heard that he slapped her around a little bit.
I was going to bring that up. You challenged him to.
Yeah. I mean, I never had a problem with Stone Cold, but I didn't know that when he got drunk, he beat women. Well, that just shows you right there. Vince will keep a woman beater around too. He just doesn't care if you're a woman beater, whatever you are. So he never accepted the challenge, but I called him out on it. They edited the show to make it look like I was insane or something. Hey, Hulk Hogan this, I seen it. But the whole thing is Stone Cold wouldn't come out. Hulk Hogan wouldn't come out because they know that in real life I am a badass.
Yeah.
You know, I can back up what I say. You know, I'm not only a street fighter, a pro boxer, all that stuff. And not that I'm bad. I've had my ass kicked, man. Believe me. Don't get wrong. But when it comes to a Hulk Hogan or a Stone Cold, they couldn't carry my jockstrap.
Right.
And they know it, and they didn't do nothing about it, and they sat there and they did nothing. I never even got a response from Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I had Dana White ready to back up a UFC, back up $1 million possibly that I had through a guy named Kel Sonnen. I hope it was going to go through, who's from University of Oregon, who's a fighter, damn good UFC fighter. But it never did happen. Never did materialize.
Right. Well, I will say, and one of the things that I've come across in the boys' opinion of you is your toughness has never been denied. I actually just heard Raven say you almost beat Raven up at one point. So I don't know. It's just that your toughness has definitely never come into question. So
I don't know. Maybe I came across wrong, but I like Scotty the Body. You're talking about Raven. Yeah. I really liked that kid. I knew he was going to.
He said it was some sort of misunderstanding, and he apologized, but it wasn't anything like. But he said he was afraid.
Well, you know, my dad was really sick, and maybe something had to do with that. But I personally, I'll tell you who I like and don't like, and he's one guy I liked a lot.
Right,
you know, the Raven.
And before we cleared up the Hogan thing, we were starting to get into some Pat Patterson. Roddy Piper had talked to you about Pat Patterson. We cut the cameras just so everybody knows why we cut the cameras. Is we had a conversation off camera, and we discussed whether we wanted to talk about this or not. And Billy was concerned that this his views being expressed to the camera would reflect negatively on us. But you know, after the conversation that we had, the truth is the truth. And we feel that if you want to tell these stories, that we would like to hear them because they've never been told. So we brought up Roddy Piper, we brought up Pat Patterson, and we brought up rape. So I'll let you take it from there about what Roddy had told you and what happened to you and your experiences with this situation.
Yeah, this is bad, man. This is gross, sickening. Another reason why Vince should be not in the WWE, shouldn't even be involved in wrestling whatsoever. And he knows it's the truth. Of course, he will deny it and have an attorney on it. But Roddy had told me that he was molested when he was younger by Patterson. And he told me when he got to the major leagues, the big leagues, Piper lived 30 miles away from me. And I lived in Portland. He lived in Hillsboro, Oregon, Portland, Oregon. And Roddy and I were always close in a big sense with vitamin C as well. And you know, Roddy would invest through me, and I would always make it good with Roddy. Bud Sawyer would invest with me. He did make it good. It cost him his life. not by me. You know, I would never do that to the boys.
Right.
But he owed somebody some big money, and so did Gino Hernandez, and they ended up paying with their life. You know, when you don't pay dealers, that's what happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
You think Gino didn't OD? You think it was made to look like an OD?
he was 100% murdered.
Okay.
I mean, they can say whatever they want. He OD'd. No, he owed money, and plus he was with some young girl that, I don't know, she was like 14 or 13, one of the cartel women, and he was told to back off her. That I do know, and I don't think he did. And then he had a cocaine debt, and it's just like in Chicago when these people, black on black crime, when they don't pay their bill, they make examples of you, and they'll kill you. And that'll say, if you don't pay your debt, you're going to die. Well, if you're going to die, you're going to pay your debt. Most people are, right? So that's the way I look at it. Been in the drug industry for a long time. Ashamed to say. And so Vince worked me the whole way. Get back to where the gym is. I go back, and now the gym's open. It was a big, huge success. Had 1,000 members. Hulk Hogan came there, signed autographs. It was just absolute great. And and so I go back to Vince, and I start up. Well, as soon as I go back, my drug addiction starts back up. And we go to these town to town like before. I'm going, oh my God, I just couldn't take it. You know, I started taking 40 Vicodin a day. I couldn't get enough. We get bottles of 500 from Dr. Zahorian. And I'd take them. I got to the point where I took the Vicodin like this. I didn't even count them, nothing. I just went like that. And then down them with like a Pepsi or, you know, a soda pop so they'd break up quicker.
Right.
And I was so sick. And Hercules, all the guys were doing it. So come in October, this is something you guys probably do not know, and this is a fact. You can ask, in fact, the only people that are alive that I know of now that John Studd and Dino Bravo, those guys are all dead. They were on the flight. The Demolition, who I just seen today, and I just seen Jimmy Hart today too, by the way.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Hart's mother did die at that. I forgot to bring that up.
Yes.
When Hogan was there, you know.
Well, that's what Hogan said that he was so upset about, and that's why he wanted to like confront you and whatever.
Well, that's all bullshit, you know.
Right,
but
right,
today I gave Jimmy Hart a big hug. He's always been a great guy to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, love him to death, you know, and his mother did die, and I went and made sure I gave him a hug today.
Right.
I didn't at the time because I really didn't even know,
right?
You know, until someone told me later.
Right.
And so I'm trying to shorten this up, and it's a hard thing to do because it happened over a course of a long period of time. So when in October, like 28th or something like that, I'm in a plane, and Demolition, Axe and Smasher on the plane, and Dino Bravo's on the plane, and I overdose. I took like, I don't know how many Vicodin I took, but I'm on the plane, and my heart started defibbing on me, and they had an emergency landing. Now imagine this, we were going, I think, Detroit to Detroit, Michigan, to Chicago to Miami or something like that. And they had that emergency landing in North Carolina. So I OD'd. They put me on this gurney. My heart's barely breathing. Brady Boone got off the flight with me. And I'm in the ER room. And right away they asked me, said, Mr. Haynes, you're either going to have a pacemaker put in, or you're going to have to take 2 shots to the heart, you know, zap me.
Right, restart.
I was only beating like 32 beats a minute.
Right.
Out of rhythm. So I said, do this, go ahead and zap me. And so they started shaving me real quick, and they put this rubber grommet in my mouth so I didn't bite my teeth out, which I have none left now. They've been knocked out. And so they put this grommet in my mouth, and so I'm trying to figure what the hell's going on. And next thing you know, they hit me. And my whole body comes up like The Exorcist, you know. And they hit me again, it comes up like The Exorcist. And so I'm slobbering, pissed my pants, everything you could think of. And I stayed there one night in ICU, and Vince kept calling how I am, or and so I flew home. My wife and my gym manager flew me home. When I got home, Vince was on the phone asking me why I wasn't in California. after I just was I almost OD'd.
Right.
Was asking me, because I was headlining California with Randy Savage, Macho Man. And I said, Vince, I just OD'd. He goes, that's your problem, not mine. I said, fuck you, it means my problem. You're the one who's giving me all the drugs from Dr. Zahorian. Why is it my problem? That's why I say he should help all the guys, all the boys with dope addiction. So I got in an argument with him about that. Lo and behold, half dead, I made these shows. I flew down and made Frisco, blah, 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 all these shows, because I still didn't know what was coming around the corner for me yet. So, still taking Vicodin and all that, but I cut it back. And so, I go back to work. Comes Rochester, here we go. Comes Rochester TV. Vince McMahon now comes into my room, into my hotel room, just like you guys are into my room right now. You know, and I don't know where we're at. We just did a function, Newark, I think Newark, New Jersey. And so Vince comes in and he's got 2 bottles of Corona. He knows I'm not a drinker. You know, yeah, I'm a painkiller guy, you know, but I'm not a drinker. And he wanted to toast a beer to me turning heel. So we cracked the beers together. I drank about half mine with probably about 10 Vicodin, maybe more. And so I have to use the restroom. So I go in the restroom, and when I'm in the restroom, he had to slip something into my beer. And a date rape, because that's what Piper said he used on him. A date rape. So I drank the rest of the beer, and next thing I started feeling funny. And next thing at the door, here comes Pat Patterson and Mel Phillips and all these here guys that I know are straight up fag, gay. If you get offended because I said fag, I think licking another man in the ass is pretty weird. That's me, okay? And but to do it by date raping them, I think like Bill Cosby did to women, is bullshit. So I started almost, I felt like I was dying. And then Lord Alfred Hayes shows up, who's another known gay, you know? And I just want to be left alone at that time. And I was telling Vince I'm just feeling really dizzy. So I think he tried to help me get on the bed. I'm not sure, because I can't say for sure, but I ended up on the bed. I woke up the next day, and I had wrestling boots on that weren't tied. I was completely naked. I had a Billy Jack hat covering my crotch, and I had sperm. Everybody knows what sperm smells like, bleach.
Right.
And all over my face. My eyes were glued, and here I am. I don't know if I took it up the rear. Whatever happened, I don't know. But all I know is I got in the shower. I missed my flight, and I got to the show, and I didn't know what happened. I'm still trying to figure out a few days later, and I finally got to Vince. I said, Vince, what did you do to me, man? And he goes, what are you talking about? What did I do? It was like a nightmarish dream. You don't remember it. That's the whole thing about date rape. They give you this drug, and your mind kind of freaks out like acid or something. And I said, no, I know you've done something to me. I woke up naked. He goes, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I wasn't even up in your room. That's when I knew he was lying. That's when I know he was up in my room. And so that's the time that I gave notice. And I was going to come back with a M16, and in my mind, I was going to wipe everybody out with an M16. And I mean what I say. I gave my notice. I quit. Went back, and then during the course of the ordeal, the time, I said, you know, I'm making a mistake by doing this. Maybe I should go back, knowing if I went back, I'm going to be fired. I mean, if I already wasn't fired, I'm going to be fired. But my mind was so screwed up with drugs at that time, I didn't know if I was raped or not. So I kept this hidden until I'm talking to you guys right now, you know.
This is the first time you've ever told this story.
I may have told it, you know, I may have told it to a brother or something.
But not on
I'm
camera.
Not sure.
Not
Not
on
on camera. First time ever public, for sure. And Roddy had told me about him being raped. And so when they came to the Memorial Coliseum, I talked to a lot of the guys one-on-one at the, I think it was a Marriott. We were all staying at the Marriott, and I told them what happened to me. And Hernandez, Hercules Hernandez, come to me and he says, "Let me talk to you." I came in his room and he started crying. And he said the same shit happened to him with Pat Patterson and Mel Phillips and Terry Garvin and Lord Alfred Hayes and who knows else, Vince. I'm sure, I know Vince is AC Doocy anyway. He goes both ways. So there's another guy. And then these are guys I wrestled and had respect for and always will. And Rick Rude, I think he quit over it, told me the same thing. So a lot of these guys that they knew they couldn't get to bang, as you want to call it, have sex with.
Right.
They would date rape him like they would a woman.
Now, did you ever confront Patterson or any of this gang?
I haven't talked to any of them since.
Wow.
And if I did talk to, wait, I take it back. No, wait, I take it back. I did in 1992. I drove down to get cocaine money. Remember I told you guys that last time. I drove because it was going to be ribbed on this gimmick of black blood to be played. When I went down there, I had 3 guns with me, and my whole intent was to go down there and to play it cool, and then to go in there and blow Vince away and Patterson and all these other people, and probably turn the gun on myself. When I went in there, Vince hid. He was so scared to death, right, Vince? You hid like a pussy in his drawer in his office with Pat Patterson behind him, Terry Garvin, all these other guys hiding behind the door, knowing that I had arrived, and knowing what they'd done to me, and knowing what he'd done to all these other guys. So when they wouldn't open the door, and I tried my hardest to bang it in, I couldn't do it. So someone had to put something against it, or they had been standing against it like this. I went out to my car, my truck, and I had 3 weapons, and I got the 9mm, 38, whatever I was going to get, and then Hercules come out and grab me. I think I told you guys that. Hercules said, "Don't do it," and was crying real tears, "Don't do it," because he knew I was going to do it.
Right.
And he knew my past and what I had done. He had bought my wife's ex-house, and that's where he ended up dying in 2004. He ended up, I think, overdosed. I mean, they said heart attack, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm sure it was overdose. And so, yeah, I got back in my car because since Hercules saved my life, saved Vince's life, there wouldn't even be a Vince. Vince wouldn't even be alive. And I wouldn't either, Pat Patterson. So, yeah, I was very offended by that. And when I come back in 92, after that, then my dad died in 93, and then my life just went.
Right.
And I looked at it like this, man. I said, you delivered dope to these guys, coke, you had all these millions, you lost it to save your family, you ended up back at square one, you deserved everything you got. And so I went ahead, still was doing drugs, and I just acknowledged the fact that I deserved everything that happened to me. Whether it was getting banged in the butt or whatever as a kid. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I'd done something to my mother as a kid.
Well, that's never anybody's fault when they're a child.
No.
That was definitely not your fault. So I think you can rest easy on that one.
I don't know. I just I had realized that I had taken a lot of guys' lives by getting them hooked on cocaine, man. And I'm willing to accept my part today, and I'm just willing that Vince McMahon's able to get on the microphone and forget the lawsuit, Vince, whatever, the $1 billion lawsuit, just forget it. Just admit to me that you're at fault here, that you did do what I just said to Piper, to Rude, to Hernandez, to Henning, to me, and then probably Kerry. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure Kerry. That's why he committed suicide. Now that I think about it, you like guys that were big, muscular guys, and a few other guys, and so if he'd just do that, I'd feel a lot better, but he won't, and that's what just bugs me so bad,
Right.
And people, they can look at me, and you can see, look in a guy's eyes if I'm looking at the camera, if I'm lying or not, or if I'm exaggerating. I have nothing to gain, nothing to lose, in Arkansas, in the political views. Everything I've said could get me killed. Everything I've said with Vince can get me killed. The date rape can get me killed. I'm going to die anyway. It doesn't matter to me.
Right.
I just basically just want to tell the truth. And this had been bugging me for a long time. And when Roddy Piper died, July 31st, I started looking at these dates, and then I realized, it was a Democratic Party that was involved in it, because in 2016 there's a guy named Seth Rich that was killed, shot in the back 4 times before the election, and that was him to tell me not to come forward because my birthday was July 10th. That's when I came forward about the murder, the Boys on the Tracks murder.
Right.
And no one wanted to believe it. They had the attorney on their side didn't want to believe it. So the election came over and Donald Trump won, thank God. And that screwed everything up from every day one. They've hated Donald Trump. Now Linda works for Trump. You think I'd be just the opposite, right?
Right.
Now, if I'm this big liar, I'd be, hey, F Trump. No, but Trump's doing a great job, so I'm not going to F Trump. I'm a Trumper. But he's got a lame excuse to have Linda McMahon working for him, because she did nothing for the WWF as far as small business. She did nothing for the boys, was forced to go into this here drug rehab to give drugs rehab to the boys. Vince has done nothing. It's going downhill, it looks like to me. Now he wants to get back in the XFL. I think Vince has taken one too many shots. So, but if he just admit it before,
so he could atone. He could atone to you, like if you were him in a private room and he walked up to you and he admitted to the things that you accuse him of and he apologized, you'd be okay with that?
One-on-one?
One-on-one, just you and him.
I'd be okay with it.
So a handshake and an I'm sorry, a heartfelt.
No, I would no, not a hand. I wouldn't touch him.
Okay.
I don't want to touch it. I don't want to touch the asshole.
But you'd be okay with it. You'd be okay with it from a personal standpoint if he atoned for the sins that you accuse him of. You'd be okay with that.
Not just me. If he'd atoned for Hernandez, for Rude, for Brady Boone,
right?
Tom Zink.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on. The list goes on and on. How many? I have no idea.
For
Probably
all of his
20.
sins. For all of his sins.
And they know it's true. Tom Zink is a real good. Tom Zink turned into an alcoholic, drug addict when they took him off the Can-Am connection because he got raped. He told me this personally, and I knew it.
The same way you?
Yes. And they took him off Can-Am, the Can-Am connection. So he ended up dying he was 59, died a couple years ago. And he turned into an alcoholic, a drug addict, mentally ill over it, the whole thing. Then they used this thing called Strike Force.
Right.
And they threw him under the bus. It is one sick organization, the WWE. The only thing that saved him is the Samoans. They're the only class act that goes on, to me, in the WWE, the Samoans.
Right.
They're the class act of all of them.
How do you want to be remembered?
In wrestling?
Yes.
I don't want to be remembered in wrestling.
Not at all?
No. I would just soon they scratch me like Vince has me on this cage match rated 3.3 or whatever. Even David Flair is rated higher than me, I think. And that's okay, because just rate me at 0 because that's what I deserve. I created a lot of death in the WWF. I set it up through cocaine, and Vince set it up through the drugs. How can he deny it? He went to court with Zahorian, and he should have went to court if he didn't with the other dude out of Atlanta, that killed Benoit. And Johnny Grunge is another good example. Johnny Grunge. These guys have just died left and right. And, if Vince could we could go in this room right now, and Vince could shut the door, and he could say, Billy, I'm sorry for what happened to you. I would say, okay, Vince, shut the door and leave. I'm good with it. I did a lot of bad things too,
Right, but it's the fact that he in your opinion, denies and hides and is nefarious about things and doesn't atone for his sins. That's his biggest sin, right?
Well, wouldn't you think so?
Yes.
I mean, think about it just for a second. He's a billionaire now. Probably a multi-billionaire by now. Maybe worth $1.5 billion, $2 billion. He's made it off the backs of guys like myself and Kamala's and so forth that are dying, that need his help. Dynamite Kid, Blackjack Mulligan, Kamala were in wheelchairs, and he sued them so they couldn't turn around and sue him. They sued them, so they couldn't sue him.
Right.
Blackjack Mulligan died a brutal death. I talked to him on the phone. He was with us. He wanted his brain given over for CTE, and he had paid off his whole entire family, I guess. You know, Barry Windham, Rotundo, and everybody else. I got broken off. I couldn't talk to Mulligan anymore about this lawsuit in 2016. And lo and behold, they put him in a nursing home, I guess, and he died of, if you look under Mulligan, Blackjack Mulligan says died of unknown causes in Tampa, Florida. And that's where most of the guys do die. And it's pretty sickening. And do I want to be remembered? Zero. Remember me is nothing.
Well, let me rephrase, because I think that what happens when I ask that question, you might think of like the person and the things you were doing. What about in the ring, when you were in front of the fans performing as Billy Jack Haynes, the character, the people the fans loved to see and cheered, and your fans out there? Do you think that kind of being remembered is okay?
I love the fans, you know, the fan part of it, and the kids and all that. You know, I loved the fans.
They loved you,
and they did. And I loved them because they reminded me of my dad. And my dad, it made me feel good that I'd done something good for my dad. That's the only reason I got into the wrestling later with the WWF, because I wanted my dad to feel good about me. You know, my blind father. I've wanted to know who my real dad is for a long time, whether it's Lenny Montana, whether it's Vince McMahon Sr., which it could have been. And the story I didn't even tell you was in 1952, there was a boxing guy here named, you can look online, you'll see in 2012, you will see this very clearly, a guy named Harold Penland from Portland, Oregon, a.k.a. Willie Nelson, a pro fighter who was also having an affair with my mother, went to New York and met Jess McMahon, who was grandpa, Vince McMahon Sr., and Junior was only about 6 years old, 7 years old at the time, if even that. And he wasn't even living with his dad. And they wanted to see how this guy could fight because he was beating everybody. He ended up being 24-0 as a pro. And Charlie Goldman was Rocky Marciano's trainer. And Al Well was Rocky Marciano's manager. He had just won the world title by knocking out, I think it was Ezra Charles, in September of '52. Well, they flew this guy in right afterwards with my mother. Lenny Montana happened to do it. And Lenny told me that Lenny and Vince Sr. had both double-timed my mother. I know it's a horrific thing to say, but I know it happened because I know my mom, and so now
you and Vince could be brothers.
That's what I'm saying.
Now, wouldn't that be the ultimate twist?
Well, that's what Vince is. That's what. Hey, we can laugh all we want, but that's what Vince is thinking of.
You can carve the Thanksgiving turkey at the McMahon house.
The whole thing is, that's why I wanted to test his DNA last time with Chris Benoit. It wasn't because of Chris Benoit. It was because I wanted to see if he was my dad. I've tested it on 2 guys so far.
Right.
You know, and then, but then I look at all the pictures with Lenny Montana, and Lenny said that I was his son. You know, and Eddie Graham said the same thing, and you look at my son, 6'7", looks identical to Lenny Montana. So I kind of, I'm praying that I am, and I don't have to worry about Vince Sr. But it's not really funny. It's really honest.
Yeah.
And I don't know what more to say. I've thrown.
We're about to wrap this up, but I just wanted to say, because I think that what I'm going to take away from being your fan when I was a kid, I loved Billy Jack Haynes. I had your LJN action figure that came with the hat that I lost, and I was a true fan of yours. I appreciated everything you did in the ring, and I just wanted to tell you that the things that you have done outside the ring, fans like me don't know. And we will always remember the Billy Jack Haynes character and love that character. And we loved you because we were fans of you. So we appreciate you and the things that you did inside the ring. And the things you did outside the ring, you'll have to atone for that. But the things you did inside the ring, you touched kids like me all over the world, and never forget that.
Well, that's nice. That's what I wanted to do for my dad, but I still throw myself under the bus, and I just want Vince to come with me, and then Patterson and everybody else to be held accountable. And when they're held accountable, I'll come forward and tell everybody what I've done so I could be held accountable for other horrific things that I've done in my life. Until that happens, I guess no one's going to be held accountable. What I have said is the truth. And anything they can say, of course they're going to deny it. But all you got to do is look up records of Hercules, Hernandez, Rude, all these guys dying these mysterious deaths, why they died so soon, and it's drug addiction on top of guilt. And then Mike Awesome I forgot him. You know, Mike Awesome, in my opinion, is the greatest wrestler of all time. I met Mike in 1989 when I was in Florida, and right after the fiasco thing, and I had the first match Mike ever had, Mike Awesome, and I knew that kid was going to go somewhere, and I watched him in ECW, and he is the best big man I've ever seen wrestle ever. I mean, I couldn't believe the stuff that guy did, walking up turnbuckles with guys on his back and stuff, and then he ends up hanging himself, and I know that Mike also was molested, you know, and was also promised to push. And then I don't know about the test guy, but I didn't know him, so I can't comment on that. But Mike Awesome was with WWF for a long time, and then ECW. And,
WCW as well.
And yeah, he was there, and he died in 2007. Vince needs to really, he's a billionaire, so here I am sitting here basically a couple grand in the bank on SSI and stuff.
Right.
So, you know, who's people going to go through the lens and believe? They're going to believe a billionaire or going to believe me?
Well, eventually he'll have to come face to face with his maker, and he can't lie then, right?
Well, if he refuses to say anything, he'll come face to face with me then.
Well, I think that's something that we would all like to see, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
But I don't think there'll be a camera for that one, because the camera would probably burn.
Billy, I'd like to thank you for being here. This was a true honor, and let's make sure that we don't wait another 10 years to do another one of these. It was riveting, an honor to sit with you and talk with you. I'd just like to say thank you as a fan, and it was a true honor to talk to you.
Yeah, brother.
Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome, and thank you for everybody here in our video. Let me have my space and everything and say what I wanted to say. Once again, like you did last time. This time I was much better because you helped feed me a little bit and get my mind right, like Cool Hand Luke, you know. But
thank you guys. We'll catch you next time.